All right, let's dive into something that I think is really fascinating. It's this paradox, a real classic, that puts cold hard math up against, well, your gut. So, picture this. You're at a casino, standing at a roulette table, red and black, and the ball lands on red, okay? Then it lands on red again, and again, and again, for 49 spins in a row. Now the dealer looks at you, ready for the 50th spin. And, the math is crystal clear, right? The odds are still 50-50, the wheel doesn't have a memory, but what is your gut telling you in that moment? What is it screaming at you to do? And that is the conflict, right there. Probability theory says, go for it, bet. I mean, every spin is its own thing. It's an independent event. The past doesn't matter. But your brain, your intuition, it's like every alarm bell you have is going off, telling you, whoa, hold on, wait. So, where does that incredibly strong feeling that something is just wrong actually come from? And here's the twist, the crucial pivot. The whole conflict, it's not really about what's going to happen on the next spin. It's about the information you were just handed. I mean, 49 reds in a row, that's not just another data point. It's a message. It's a signal so strong it makes you question the entire game itself.
So once you start questioning the information, you get to what this is really about. We're moving beyond just probability now. We're talking about trust. We're talking about this kind of hidden foundation that all of our math and logic actually depends on.
Let's call this the information contract. Think of it like a silent handshake, an unspoken deal that we make with reality every single time we try to calculate odds. We just assume the system is fair, that it's consistent, and that the information we're seeing is the truth. And just think about all the things that contract promises, right? You're assuming the wheel is perfectly balanced. You're assuming the dealer is honest when they say red. You're assuming the table's not tilted. There are no hidden magnets. And, that the word red even means the same thing it did an hour ago. Probability works perfectly, but only as long as you're inside this little bubble of trust. Okay, but what happens when that trust gets completely shaken? Well, this is where a new character enters the story, Entropy. Now, for what we're talking about today, just think of Entropy as this giant warning siren that goes off the moment a pattern stops looking random and starts looking like something else. See, a streak of 49 reds, it's not just unlikely in the same way that, say, winning the lottery is unlikely. It's something else. The key word here is compressible, and that little word is a massive clue. So what on earth does compressible mean? It just means the event is ridiculously simple to describe. Think about it. I don't have to read out a long, messy sequence like red, black, red, black. I can just say red 49 times. That's it. And when a pattern gets that clean, that easy to summarize, it stops feeling like pure randomness and starts feeling like there's a hidden rule or even a deliberate signal at play. And this is absolutely the key idea. Entropy doesn't tell you the next spin is going to be black. That's not its job. Instead, Entropy's job is to make you question the entire story you've been telling yourself. It forces you to stop and ask, hang on, am I even looking at a fair, random roulette wheel anymore? And that one little question, it leads to the big one, a broken contract. And this is where Entropy creates chaos, not on the physical wheel, but right between your ears. Yeah, the disorder isn't in the spins themselves. The wheel could be doing whatever. The chaos is in the meaning of those spins. Your simple, cozy explanation of it's just a 50-50 chance, it just can't hold up anymore. It's not a big enough box for what you just witnessed. And into that vacuum, all these new explanations just come flooding in. Is the wheel tilted? Is the dealer crooked? Is there a magnet under the table? Am I on some weird prank show? All of a sudden, random chance is just one possibility on a long list. And honestly, it doesn't even feel like the most likely one anymore. So let's circle back to that gut feeling. If the math book says 50-50, why does pausing, why does hesitating feel so rational? Why does it feel like the smartest thing you can do? Well, because you're not just betting on red or black anymore. You're being forced to place a bet on whether your entire understanding of the situation is still valid. That hesitation, that's you being perfectly rational. It's you taking a pause to figure out if you can still trust the information you're getting, to see if the rules of the game haven't secretly changed on you. And you know what? This response is baked into our biology. When any living thing, from a tiny little cell all the way up to us, gets a signal that feels chaotic or untrustworthy, the price of acting on that signal suddenly goes through the roof. So what's the most rational thing to do? Conserve energy. Freeze. Pause. Your hesitation isn't you failing at logic. It's a deeply ingrained, ancient survival strategy for dealing with chaos. And look,
This isn't just a fun thought experiment about a casino. This whole idea of questioning the information contract, it shows up absolutely everywhere.
Take science, for example. If a scientist runs an experiment and the data comes back perfect, like a perfectly straight line, unbelievably clean results, the first reaction isn't to pop the champagne, it's suspicion. The data is too compressible, which makes them think, is something wrong with my experiment? Did I make a mistake? Or worse, is this data fake?
It's the same with modern AI. When an AI is monitoring a really complex system and it suddenly spots a pattern that's just too neat or a streak that goes on for too long, it raises a red flag. Not because it can predict the future, but because that clean, compressible signal is a huge hint that the system itself has changed, that the old rules just don't apply anymore.
And what about in finance? A stock that just goes up and up and up in a perfect line every single day? That doesn't make traders feel confident. It makes them start digging. It feels too good to be true. The market kind of freezes, just like that biological response we talked about, because the pattern feels totally artificial. It breaks the contract. It screams manipulation or a bubble, not a healthy company.
Which brings us to a really powerful way to think about this. Probability is what we use to predict outcomes. But entropy? Entropy predicts the breakdown of our ability to predict at all. It's the difference between using a weather forecast on a normal day versus seeing the barometer suddenly plummet and realizing your forecast is now useless. That hesitation you feel at the roulette table, that's you hearing that alarm go off.
I think this just says it all, really. When you hesitate, you're not doubting the math. You're doubting the world's willingness to keep its promises. Your gut feeling isn't some failure of logic. It's a really deep, intuitive check to see if that unspoken contract, the one that lets you use math in the first place, is still being honored.
So that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. The news you read, the systems you count on at your job, just the basic assumptions you make to get through the day. Every single one of them is built on one of these information contracts. They all rely on these hidden promises. And so the real question is, what are the promises you're trusting right now that you've never even thought to question?